This is Little Talk with Big Nikki.
Hello, beautiful people of YouTube, and welcome back for another video this week. We are going to be talking about not negating your insert the blank, your emotions, your feelings of how you cope and deal with life. We're not going to negate our own feelings just because they don't compare or maybe aren't as bad as somebody else's. So let's get into this. I was thinking about this because there's been several times in my life where I'm feeling something and I either don't say anything to someone, or when I tell someone how I'm feeling, I'm like, oh, but like I know like so-and-so, you know, in general, people have it worse, so I shouldn't be complaining. If I'm feeling like some sort of like grief or like loss of like a person, then I'm like, well, like I know people have like lost like loved ones in death, like it's not the same, like, you know, it's not as bad as their situation, and I'm negating my own feelings because I don't want to complain when other people have it worse. I was thinking about this recently though, mainly in the terms of anxiety. So I do want to talk about this a little bit because I think it's very easy for everyone now to be like, oh, like I suffer from anxiety, or, you know, I feel like the terms like anxiety and depression are just kind of in our culture and like they're very tossed around. But I'm starting to realize that maybe it's not people just tossing them around like carelessly. Maybe it's just that people actually are suffering from it, and it's just not the typical case. It's not as bad as maybe someone else has it. And I had to realize this in having my own experience with it. I told y'all on this channel, we're gonna be open, we're gonna be honest. So we're gonna be honest about it. I do feel like I suffer from anxiety sometimes, and no, I have not gone to a doctor. No, I have not been diagnosed with it. It's really hard to diagnose. It's like one of those things where unless you're having severe symptoms, like severe panic attacks regularly, but that's what we think about when we think of anxiety. We think of, you know, someone who is like constantly having like these panic attacks, and that is the case for some people. It definitely is, and that is not to be taken lightly at all. But I think a lot of the times, more so than anything, a lot of us deal with it kind of silently. It's like a feeling you get. I can't really explain it, but like all of a sudden, like your chest gets a little bit tighter, your breathing gets a little bit more elevated. For me, I feel like this pit, like in the base of like my, like where my rib cage is, it's just like this like ball that's there, and I never had like a name for it until I kind of just started to realize, I'm like, I feel anxious. Like that's like the feeling you associate with like what you're doing. And no, like I said, I'm not on medication for it. I don't think I need to be. I think I do a pretty good job of managing it when it does come, and, you know, trying to keep it at bay as much as I can through, you know, self-care practices, and my spirituality helps a lot with it too. But I think there again, I've always been like kind of scared to like say something, like since this has started going on with me probably about a year ago now. It's like I'm like too scared to say anything to anyone, because it's like, well, you're like, you don't actually have anxiety because you don't have like attacks, or like you're not on medication. And it's like we like negate what one person's dealing with and feeling just because it's not to the level or the extreme that someone else is dealing with it or experiencing it. And I think both ends of the spectrum, whether you're dealing with it a little bit or dealing with it heavily, deserve to be heard and deserve to, be able to be talked about. Like I said, I think for, a lot of us, we find ourselves like in this middle ground where it's not this bad, but it's not like obsolete either. We're just kind of like here, but like we're so scared to like tell someone like you're grieving or you're feeling anxious or you're angry because it's your situation or your emotions don't match the level of this. And I think this comes from like a societal perspective almost of like, we feel like if you're on this end of the spectrum, like you receive like more empathy, more sympathy, more people are expressing, their prayers and their thoughts for like your situation. And there again, that's great. That needs to happen. That needs to continue to happen. But I think we also need to create space for each other where if someone tweets something out about feeling anxious or feeling depressed, not having the reaction that I always had, which was like, well, they're just like tossing that word around. Like they don't really know what that means. You know what? Like they probably do know what that means, because just because they're not experiencing it on a high level does not mean that they don't feel it or experience it. So I wanted to like bring this to our attentions. One, from the perspective of ourselves as individuals, that we need to not be so quick to just brush things off of us and not negate how we're feeling. But, I had a friend say to me when I was like, sad and kind of like grieving, she said like, you can't just negate your own emotions because they don't match somebody else's situation. Like the emotions are the same. Just because the situation's different, the human emotion that you feel as a result of that situation is still very much there, and it's very much prevalent. And what one person is sad about, another person might not be. We're all very different, and I think it's just important for us as individuals to recognize how we're feeling, what makes us feel that way, and coping with it in a healthy manner. And part of that is surrounding yourself with like a support system that, even if they don't really understand why you're feeling that way about something, or maybe they haven't been in that situation yet and they can't identify with it, that they are still supported enough to not just push your feelings aside and negate your emotions just because they aren't coming from a situation that, as I said before, is as bad as somebody else's. I think that term "as bad as" can be a really big trap that we fall into. It's just another tool of comparison. I don't think comparison in a lot of senses is ever really good to do. People talk about it a lot with like social media and seeing someone else and like comparing your life to theirs. But I don't think it's good to compare your emotions to somebody else's emotions either, because like I said, what makes one person sad or upset or happy is not going to have the same effect on another individual. So I know this vlog's kind of short. I'm sure y'all aren't complaining about that. But I feel like I just need to state this, that, don't negate like what you're experiencing or what you're feeling, because you're comparing it to somebody else's situation. Your feelings are still valid, and your situations that you're dealing with are still very much valid. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please be sure to give it a thumbs up. Also, if you have not already, be sure to subscribe to my channel to catch all the rest of my videos. And as always, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram popping up on your screen right now. Make sure to follow me on social media so you can keep up with what is going on in my life. And with that being said, I hope y'all have great weeks, and I will see you next time.